Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and tonight we're on our educational channel, and we're interviewing one of the educators that were inducted into the Black Educators Hall of Fame in Wichita, Mr. Dale Cushinberry. And we both have a whole lot of things in common, not just in education, but in athletics. Welcome to the show, Dale.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege.
Hey, Dale, tell our audience, you know me, go back to kindergarten, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, and talk about some of the mentors that help you become who you are and your involvement in the educational system.
Okay, my career, I've been over 40 years in education. I've been at every level. I started as an elementary sixth grade teacher. I've been a counselor at the middle school, been a counselor at the high school. I've been a principal at the elementary school. I've been a principal at the middle school. I've been a principal at the high school. Then I taught 7 years in the education department at Washington University. Just can't hold a job. But the fact of the matter is, most of my life, I call myself a youthologist. I study young people. And so most of my life's been dedicated in that manner. Now, the other half of me is athletically inclined. And I was blessed and fortunate to receive scholarships to go on to play at the collegiate level. And again, fortunate to become an All-American for a couple of years. And so I have a good understanding on both sides of the ball, as we say it. And it served me well.
Let's talk about you being inducted into the Black Teachers Hall of Fame in Wichita. Talk about what that's about.
Well, I think, for me, I've been fortunate to have been inducted into a number of Hall of Fames, athletically and otherly. But this one means a lot to me because it's from my people. Oftentimes Black educators are overlooked by the Educational Hall of Fames throughout the nation. Some teacher, administrator in a school of about 400 students and all the resources, they tend to get in, while you have some teacher, administrator in a impoverished area, less resources, working their tails off and they don't get recognized. So for this particular group to recognize me, it's very special because these are my peers. These are people who understand what the real deal is.
Tell me this. We had the little commission of the little think tank real quick on trying to establish some of the problems that are caused in educating people of color. And we came up with about 5 different things that our educating panel came up with. Do you want to talk about any of that?
Well, I would just like to say, Brother Carlos, we're in trouble. And we're a proud people who've come through systems. And fortunately, I started out being enrolled in all Black schools prior to Brown. And I don't think I was the sharpest student in any of those schools, but because of the way we were taught, I'll pit my education against anybody's, anywhere. I can't say that to be the case for our young people coming out of schools today, our public schools. Now, moreover to our conversation about the impediments or things that are roadblocks or whatever you might want to call them, we're in trouble, and I don't think we pay attention to that. there was a gentleman I had the opportunity to escort on a number of occasions by the name of Dick Gregory. And Dick, aside from chastising me for wanting to eat my chocolate cake, used to always say, Brother Cushinberry, we got a big job to do, but we're running out of time. And, you know, at that time, I kind of said, well, Dick, that's a little doomsday, isn't it? He said, you better look around, my brother. He said, we've got a lot of work to do, and we're running out of time. Then I kind of flipped back, and I digressed just a little bit, Mr. Nelson, because I want to make a point here. In the 60s, the Nation of Islam put out a call to the Black man. And in that call, it was considered a wake-up call. And they talked about that if the Black man didn't wake up and start with self-love, building himself up, being less dependent on the white man, he's going to become simply a consumer and entertainment for that system. Okay, here we are. We've kind of lost the drive to take our own initiative as our forefathers did and say, if the job's going to get done right, we've got to do it ourselves. Okay, so we zoom in on the schools. We talk about what's right, what's wrong. I'm a fundamentalist, man. And I say that respectfully. In basketball, if you don't know how to dribble, pass, block out, whatever, you can jump out the gym, get some spectacular dunks and warm up, and play the game miserably. It's the same way in education. Our kids are graduating proficient on state assessments, and they can't even read. They can't put together two sentences and put together a coherent paragraph. They have no communication skills to speak of. And we tend to hang our hats on a tool that was created by the white institutions to show academic progress, which are state assessments. The reality is I can coach anybody to pass a state assessment that has any intellectual acumen at all by simply unpacking and teaching those things that are going to be tested. Now, I'm not telling you what the trade-offs are because those kids are pulled out of music, they're pulled out of art, they're pulled out of physical education, and they're double dosed in reading and math, and those things are going to be tested. They graduate and they can't read and they have no skills.
Tell me this, on that panel, we talked about self-confidence. We talked about knowing your history. How important, because you've taught on all of those different levels, how important do you see that?
Well, it's extremely important because if you don't know who you are and you don't know the history of yourself and your people, then you're allowing somebody else to write the narrative. And what we realize and what we know for fact is that the narrative is not written very complimentary about who we are as a people. And so if you don't know for yourself and know where you came from and know the type of people your ancestors were and what strong contributors they have been to this society here in America, then you're waiting on a narrative from somebody else to determine and state who you are. I think it's crucial.
How crucial is it for our kids to see people of color in positions of authority, and especially in the educational system? Because the educational system right now, as I see it, you have a lot of young white European women dealing with education in the urban core, and they really don't have a clue, most of them, to the population that they're serving.
Well, I think it's crucial. Modeling I think it's essential for a couple of reasons. One, so that you can visualize that it can be done because there's someone that looks like me that's doing it, whether it's being the president of the United States or whether it's a teacher in your school or whatever the case may be. That being said, this system has gone through all pains to limit the number of models that reach a level where our kids, our communities can say, wow. And I was thinking about something I heard on the news this morning, NPR radio, and the courts are going to revisit affirmative action. And I said to myself as I grabbed my forehead, Carlos, I said, wow. So they're now saying that affirmative action has been bad and has treated white folks badly, reverse discrimination. And actually, all affirmative action was saying, we're trying to right some wrongs here. And the fact that people of color, women, etc., have not been included in the infrastructure. And they always had this formula that said, if you weren't one of these three things, or all three of these things, then you didn't have a chance. If you weren't pale, if you weren't male, and if you didn't go to Yale, then you probably are not going to be at the top of the totem pole.
I want to get in Skull and Bones. Find out how I can be president.
and so, man, I can recall going to all black schools prior to Brown case, and that happened right here in Topeka.
Talk about the schools. Name the schools you went to. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let me
what that was like as a student.
Okay. Buchanan Elementary School. Our neighborhood was actually integrated. The yellow bus would come by and pick us up, go to Buchanan. We'd wave at the white kids as the patrol person stopped the bus, let them cross. When you went to Buchanan, first and foremost, there's about 20 minutes before the bell rang once the bus let you off so that you could go inside. When that bell rang, you lined up and it was definitely quiet. And Miss Montgomery, who full-figured African-American lady, was the principal. Dark complected, wore a navy blue suit with a white collar, and she was standing at the top of those stairs with her arms behind her back, and she just scanned the crowd. It was quiet. And she would nod. And that was your signal for your class to go inside. And you went in quietly. You weren't horsing around. You weren't playing. Once you got inside, you were entitled to a drink of water. You could stop by the fountain, and she better not hear any gargling, or like you got a sip of water and you move towards your classroom. When you got to the classroom door, you lined up. The teacher, in this case, Miss Crawford, would inspect you at the door. If your hair was not combed, she had this substance called Dixie Peach that was in her drawer with comb and brush, and you had to go to the coat room.
I used to use it.
I used it on bicycles and everything else, man. It had multi-purpose. And you had to go to the coat room and get your head together. The worst thing that could happen is if you didn't do it right, Miss Crawford did it for you. We thought she was the originator of Black & Decker power tools, because by the time she raked through your head, well, you'd come out trying to adjust your eye sockets. Then she would inspect your shoes. If they were dusty, there was a cloth in the coat room and you wiped your shoes off. Then you went and sat down and you propped your desk open with the ruler. She would come by and inspect every desk. Your pencils better be in the trays and sharpened. Your dictionary better be in the right place, your book stacked, and there better not be any clutter in that
your big chief tablet.
Big chief tablet and number 2 pencil. And they were in there and they were sharp. And the worst case scenario When she walked, and you can hear her heels hitting that hardwood floor, when that stopped by your desk, you knew she spotted infraction. Okay, once going through all that, close your desk, you would stand and you would salute the flag. Okay, think about the order. Think about all the stuff I've just talked about. Now, if you didn't get, which I occasionally have to admit to the audience out here, I didn't always have my homework done or have it done the right way. You stayed in at recess or after school. Now, let me compare and contrast. After Brown, when we went to predominantly white schools, if you didn't have your assignment, they gave you a 0. There's no learning in a 0. In the black schools, you may not have gotten an A, but whatever grade you got, you had a body of knowledge that went with it. Now think about the difference here. 0, body of knowledge. Our kids in the white schools learn how to play the game. Well, I won't turn in this assignment. I'll miss one here. I'll get a D on the test and I'll pass the course. Then when you get to the next connector flight, you fail miserably because you don't have the knowledge of the prerequisite course. And so that game goes on. But back to the black schools. In the playgrounds, everybody let you use their gloves when they were at bat and so on and so forth. And it was competitive, but it was a highly social environment that had business attached to it. If there was a problem at school, which very seldom there was, Miss Crawford, Miss McBriar, Miss Montgomery, they were in our church. They were in the beauty chair next to my mother. We saw them in the hardware store. And so it was a community that built a solid platform under you for your success. Those teachers understood, like our parents, where we had to take it. And they were not going to settle for you acting or being a fool. Compare and contrast. You go to the white schools. If there's an issue, it typically was on the onus of the black kid on the playground. You were punished. Kind of reminds you of slave drivers. You know, they punish those who get out of line. And so through that punishment, through that 0 process, many of our kids come through the system.
That damaged me, not the punishment, but I think I told you, I had shop, and gym. Yeah. And I just scheduled an interview with the Kansas City School District Superintendent this morning, and I was talking to the aide about me going to Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio, and I was talking about this program. I said, boy, they had some professors there, Dr. Vivian Lewis and them. It was like, hey, Mr. Nelson, ain't no track and field for you. You failed kinesiology and ain't no recess for you. You bring your butt back. But Doc, I done failed it 3 times. Well, about this time you're going to pass it. And I'm going to be here to make sure you pass it. And when I went to European institutions, as you say, it was a 0. Even in dance, Miss Simon was like, Mr. Nelson, you got 2 left feet. We got to straighten that out. And I like what you said about the principal. It was like, you in the Army when you come here. I don't know what you're doing at the crib, but when you come here, this is what we expect. And not just what we expect, this is what we're going to get, or you're not going to. Then they don't even say you're not going to be here. You still going to be here because it's a family. We're not getting rid of you because you stubborn or whatever. You're going to learn and you're going to fall in line. And boy, I'm 71 and I didn't appreciate it as much as I can appreciate what that did for my personality, what that did for my confidence, and what type of knowledge that imparted upon me if you are trying.
And I think what you said is so true. And I have vivid memories of the teachers that taught us as though they were our parents. They were totally invested in our education. And I think about that. Now, don't get me wrong. And throughout my career, there have been some non-black teachers that have been outstanding. But systemically, it wasn't, nothing is ever set up for our success systemically in this country. And if you don't believe it, just go back and look at history and see everything that's been done in history since slavery, actually prior to, but since slavery, was to suppress, negatively devalue, deflame our character, and treat us with hostility.
I might tell you this, just popped in my mind. My kinesiology teacher was black, but she was teaching, I meant to say was white, but she was teaching in a black university where we had, and she had the same feeling. Dr. Lewis, the staff in general, white or black, when you at a black institute, I think education institution, there's certain, you know, certain way you're going to deal with those young people.
That's right. And the president would not have hired her unless she had those components.
Hey, boy, that kinesiology, that'll never. 4 times they was like, "Hey, Mr. Nelson, you're not changing no major. You getting this."
Carlos. Truth be told, there's a whole lot of folks out there had a roadblock, whether it's
5 years for me to get out. They was like, "You partied, but now you getting up out of here with a degree."
Right. And you don't have, right now in education, I think it's easy to blame the system. But the thing we have to realize and call ourselves on, education doesn't begin in a schoolhouse and it doesn't end there. So all 6 kids in our family, when we went to school, we knew how to read, we knew how to write, we knew how to communicate, we knew how to behave. How huge is that today?
Boy.
Just those basics.
Hold it. Learning how to read, learning how to write, learning how to behave. Those are the basics in life that will take you to another level with people that you don't know.
And it's sad when I see situations, and I still Thursday I'm on a panel over at the Brown for the 69th anniversary of the Brown case, and you talk to young kids and they sometimes seem disinterested or whatever. Some of it has to do with the methods in which we approach young people. But as Dick Gregory said, we got a big job. We're in trouble if we don't figure out some way to turn this thing around.
I don't think that you can turn it around unless you can really take control of your community politically, because you have to have the people that are representing you be able to change the law or the policies.
Yes.
And anything else is, to me, is not going to work.
No.
Well, what I'd like to ask you in closing, because we're going to bring you back on, what would you have to say to our educators? And then I want you to give a word. What would you have to say to our parents?
Educators, teach these young people as though their lives depend on it, because they do. Whoever thought the cost of living would be death? And so we're dealing with a very serious matter. When you have the privilege and opportunity to have a young person before you, don't take that lightly. You teach that child as though what you do with them has life implications, because it does. To the parents, be parents. I mean, you know what? These kids don't ask to be brought into the world. And so handle your business, handle your responsibility. And the fact is, everybody isn't going to have the same level of skills as far as parenting. Some may have had a child when they're very young. That's where that village comes into play. You know, we always used to have grandmas and aunts and people who pitched in. We don't have that as much as we used to. And where one slips, you know, like in the military, you can't let the flag touch the ground, man. We got to keep on moving. And
I
I'm
like
saying,
that. I like that. Can't let it touch the ground.
no, we can't. We got to keep
And
that.
it's our flag.
It's our flag. And you know what? We there's so
Our
much.
kids.
That's right. There's so much to say about what we need to do, but we'll never turn it around until we can walk down the street and speak to each other.
That's perfect to end on. And as we always say here at Cascade Media Group, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself.
That's true.
The program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.